winter weather brings out so much neighborliness and so
2,
much. And I wonder sometimes if I could just settle into the beauty of it.
8.
But then I think about we're all doing things for each other in this realm of beauty and nature.
This is Improv in Real Life. I'm Jude Treder-Wolff. In this podcast, we'll explore how improv can help us navigate the speed of life through conversations with experts who are wise, hilarious, and deeply human.
It's November of 2002. I'm in the group room of a creative therapy institute in downtown Manhattan with about a dozen therapists who are in this support group for people in private practice whose practices are filling up with individuals and families who were directly affected by the attacks on the World Trade Center. If you are a therapist in and around New York City at this point in time, you're dealing with a lot of people who were either there, who were late for work that day and all of their colleagues died, people who were the last person to speak to somebody who died in the towers, just all kinds of faces of grief, which is not unique for people in private practice or myself. But what is unique is that we are also going through our own grief and people that we lost and the world around us that we're in, which has never happened before in the 12 years that I've been in private practice. So there's an intensity to these emotions and an immediacy that is starting to really mess with my head and why these support groups are so important. This one is run by a woman, I'll call her Joanne. She's very respected. She's very well known. She leans toward the analytic side of the therapy spectrum, which I chose this group for that reason, because I was trained in the direct emotional action psychodrama side of things, which is very immediate and intense. And I kind of want a little bit of a break from that because these emotions are really backing up on me. Now, Joanne is an enigma. There's something chill and still about her that I aspire to, but I don't quite get it. She could be sitting next to a sleeping baby or a couple that is screaming at each other, have the exact same look on her face. I don't know if she's calm or clueless. I really can't tell. And she reminds me of Dr. Melfi from The Sopranos. She even dresses like Dr. Melfi. And I lean more toward clueless because it did take Dr. Melfi 8 seasons to figure out that no matter how much you dig around in his childhood traumas, this murderous, manipulative psychopath is not there for self-realization. Well, as much as she fascinates me, Joanne, I'm not here for her, but she frustrates me as well. So she always starts every one of these groups with a 15-minute meditation. And then everybody shares, and then kind of the time is up. And when it's my time to share, I say, you guys are great, and Joanne, you're great. I just don't think this group is a good fit for me. And for the first time, I see sort of a register of a connection on her face. So I say, it's not you guys, it's me. I feel emotionally activated in here. I feel like I'm too much. I feel like what I'm going through is just more than what this group really is handling. And Joanne says, whatever you're going through, just give it to us. Look at all these caring faces and look at the faces of all these people with many years of experience. That's here to hold you for whatever it is you're going through. So just give it to us. Just tell us everything. We can handle it. So I say, okay, well, when we do the meditation, it's hard for me to relax in a room full of people. It's always been hard for me. So I try, but I don't feel like I'm doing it right. And the minute I try to relax, all these trauma thoughts, they're not necessarily my trauma, but some of them are, but some of them aren't because they're getting mixed up now with my clients' traumas and the things that they went through. And then the feelings of sorrow and grief. And I don't know, is it my grief or is it their grief? But it all surfaces. And then I get more agitated. Then when everybody starts sharing, I think, oh my gosh, what I'm going through isn't even as bad as what they're going through. I'm comparing my survivor's guilt to your survivor's guilt. And then I feel more activated. And then it just feels like, and then, okay, I'm trying to self-regulate myself. And I go to the movies on Saturday. I go to see Something's Gotta Give, a fun, adult, romantic romp. It's supposed to be. And I see this 3-year-old kid walking around the movie theater by himself in the dark, a half-empty theater. He's just wandering around. So I start shadowing this kid. I can't watch this movie. I got to watch this kid. I don't know where he belongs. So he goes toward the exit and he starts to cry. And I say out loud in the movies, whose child is this? There's a 3-year-old child here. Whose child is this? And this couple down in front notice this kid has wandered away from them and they start yelling at him. You're supposed to stay in your seat. And I say, this is not an appropriate movie for him. He's bored. You need to take him home. And I'm so enraged with these people. And they say, what, are you trying to kidnap my kid? I say, what? I'm not trying to kidnap your kid. I think someone else could have kidnapped your kid and you would not have known. And the manager comes and asks me to leave. And I come home and I say to my husband, I got thrown out of the movie theater because I got mad at these people. And he says, well, you could have just gone to the manager. And I think, I didn't even think of it. I didn't even think of it. I feel like I'm spiraling out. And Joanne says, yeah, you probably do need something more than what this group has to offer. And I do. So I start going to all these different kinds of retreats and workshops. I go to a cognitive behavioral retreat where they say you have to know yourself. I go to this self-compassion workshop where they say you have to love yourself. I started getting into Zen Buddhist retreats and where they say you have to lose yourself. And then this existential therapist says you got to get over yourself. So you have to know yourself, love yourself, lose myself, or get over myself. It's like I'm dating myself, but with a copay. And I will say, did any of those different modalities help me? Yes. They all helped in some way. They all had some tools or techniques, but the ones that really landed were the ones where the therapist, the facilitator, made a connection to me, where they saw me and I was able to be myself. They all helped in some way, but the people that made a connection, that's what really is the heart of healing. And that's why I'm so excited about this conversation with Justin Drogos and Jonathan Webb, who do medical improv at Northwestern University. We talk about emotional self-management, emotional self-regulation, and how that plays a role in healthcare. I hope you enjoy. If you enjoy stories like this, head over to Spotify and check out Funny Story with Jude Treder-Wolff. They're true stories from my life, often told live on stage. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is brought to you by LifeStage. LifeStage provides opportunities for people to gain skills and knowledge for navigating today's uncertain world. The capacity for creativity, connection to new ideas and other people, collaboration, and community building. For more information, visit lifestage.me.
Last summer, I had this privilege to go to an advanced medical improv weekend at Northwestern University in Chicago. People in healthcare like myself, I'm in the mental health side of things, and people on the physical side of things, all together to deal with the wonderful topic of how improv can help medical professionals do their jobs, relate to people, and take care of themselves. And I went to this wonderful workshop with my two guests today, Justin Drogos and Jonathan Webb. And I'm going to ask them to each take a turn sharing about what they do at Northwestern, because they actually work there. How about you, Justin?
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me, Jude. My name's Justin Drogos. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Physical Therapy and Human Movement Sciences. So I teach in our Doctor of Physical Therapy curriculum. I also teach in the Master of Prosthetics and Orthotics curriculum. I teach across mostly first-year courses, but I coordinate our E&E courses, which is exam and evaluation. I work on the anatomy team, on the neuro team. I do research on stroke recovery, and also do research on medical improv and its impact on our DPT students. And that's how I started working with Jonathan Webb more closely.
I love that. That's a wonderful segue. Jonathan Webb, how about you tell us what you're doing at Northwestern, and then we'll circle it right back to you and Justin.
Sure. Again, my name is Jonathan Webb, and I am what's referred to as a program administrator. I do a lot of things behind the scenes. I also do a front-facing role with students. And as Justin just said, I have the opportunity to work with students on the medical improv side of things in orientation. We do outreach to other programs. And pretty soon we will both be leading a medical improv class as part of the physical therapy curriculum. I'm also an actor and an improviser outside of Northwestern, which I'm sure we'll probably get into later on.
Well, thank you both for being here today. And thank you for what you're doing with bringing the world of improv to the world of medicine. The topic that you had chosen for today is such a rich one for the world of medicine, but it spills over into all of our lives because the topic is emotional self-management and emotional self-awareness and ways to use improv to become more aware of our emotions and how they're being expressed. And emotions are we're always just swimming in an ocean of emotion, like the song goes. Or I just made that up. Anyway, so it's a topic that's probably underexplored, and improv is a wonderful way to explore it and to teach about it.
Maybe we could talk about like how we come at it. So we, as part of our orientation program for our students, we first dip our toe into kind of the world of emotional expression. We have them play a game called Motion Emotion, where we have them walk around the room and we shout out different emotions, and they're supposed to move their body, say hello to each other while conveying that emotion. And we introduce the idea of When you're feeling different ways or you're asked to project different emotions, you move differently, you talk differently, your body posture changes, all of these things change. And then as the students progress in their training, and I think this can move beyond physical therapy students or the world of medicine, the idea that we communicate with our bodies and our voices certain emotions, and that sometimes we might not be aware of what we're communicating. We might not be aware of what we're receiving. And so as students in a rigorous program, there's many opportunities to react in an unhealthy manner. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes, it's a high stress environment. Working with patients can be high stress, their families can be high stress. Working with your own family, I have 3 young kids, that can be high stress at times. And we started thinking about the idea of not only do you need to know how you're communicating, you need to understand appropriate intensity of emotion. And that sometimes, no matter what you're feeling, given the context, you might not be able to show what you're feeling. So we started playing around with that idea, working with some of our students and the idea of how can you control your emotions in a way that you can still convey something, but it doesn't border on too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it can be a challenge for people to have emotions, be aware of them, and at the same time calibrate what they actually say and do with people and with patients or with colleagues as well. Because teams have to work together and are impacting each other all the time. So your thoughts, Jonathan, on this topic?
Sure, yeah. Just to build off of what Justin was saying, the point when I think I finally realized that there was a connection between the one world that I'd been living in and the healthcare education setting was I was actually proctoring, I think it was a second year exam, and we're divided between multiple floors within our office building here in Chicago. And I was walking around making sure things were in place, things were going according to plan. And I came across a student that was standing outside one of the classrooms, and they looked kind of anxious. They were kind of like shaking, moving around a little bit. So I just walked up, just wanted to check, hey, are you doing okay? And the student turned to me and looked, and they said, yeah, I'm just trying to get into character. And as soon as they said that, I'm like, wait a second. I'm an actor. I've done a lot of acting. I do improv. I have to get into character. There's definitely a connection between the training I have and the training that these students are having. And fortunately, I was working directly with one of the directors in the program who connected me with Justin, and I found out about his background with improvisation as well. And we started, as he said, we got together and we started collaborating with different ideas. That was about 6 years ago at this point. So we had our first successful like one-off workshop about a week before the shutdown in 2020. And then we were fortunate enough to start a lot of research directly with students so things can directly impact the student population within the physical therapy program.
Wonderful. Just listening to this idea of getting into character, of a health professional getting into character, it's really not that out of range when you think about how many different situations you're going to encounter and the sensitivity of the person on the other side if you're the professional. And it reminded me of, I want to tell you a really quick story about why I think this is such an important topic, because of something that happened to me when I was seeing my primary care doctor, and I'm not with her anymore, not because she did anything wrong. She's just retired. Not because of the story, but she was very, very sort of frantic person. It was a practice that had a frantic energy about it, which made it feel very busy and like it's very important what's happening here. But as a patient, I felt like, okay, quickly, let's go. And I had that feeling from her, and she was an excellent doctor, but that energy was always there. And so she sits down with me and she has this look on her face and she says, you have a very serious kidney disorder that has no symptoms, and I'm not sure it's treatable. And she's upset. She can't even make eye contact with me. She's so upset. And I'm looking down, and then I look up and I say, what? Where are you getting this from? She says, your blood work, this number. She shows me the number. I don't know what that number means. She tilts the computer towards me. I look at the number. I don't know what that number means. And she starts going into what's now going to happen. I need a urine sample. You need to have a sonogram. You need to have this tomorrow. And I say, can I just calm down a minute? She could not calm down. She was so frantic that this whole thing made her even more frantic because she had to give me news that wasn't good news. So I asked if I could redo the blood work. And the blood work, when I redid it, was normal. So this was not, I don't have this thing that she said I had. This is like 10 years ago. I don't have it. I didn't have it. But I was
Wow.
so scared by the contagion between her, that frantic feeling you have going to the doctor anyway, the frantic energy of that space, and then giving me news that she had trouble saying to me, which I can understand if it were real. But we should have just first said, let's just redo the blood work because I was dehydrated. That was the whole problem. That was the only thing that was wrong. That number completely normalized. I drank a ton of water before I went back. I'm just saying that I've thought about that ever since we picked this topic for your episode. I thought of that because I thought, as a patient, I was very much taking my cues from her. And as a professional, she was not aware. She was just not aware. And she's a wonderful doctor. She's trying to do the right thing, but she was not aware of the impact that that would have on me. And I felt like I was the calm one that thought of the solution in that example. And she was like, okay, let's try that.
Well,
So
yeah, like
anyway,
I'm sure your anxiety, everything else is going through the roof because she's communicating that sounds like she's communicating this is a life or death situation you're in.
she was
And she couldn't
communicating.
just take a moment, especially showing you the computer screen. That's funny to me because it's like, if an architect showed me a bunch of schematics and they're like, look at this, I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. Thank you for showing me, but I don't know what that means.
It's exactly like, yeah, like an accountant showing you this spreadsheet. No, thank you. That is
Yeah.
your expertise. And it was her anxiety about giving me this news was very contagious to me. So this is, I don't think, I mean, this is not intentional. And that frantic energy in that office, it was always like that. And I realized that it kind of was set the tone for how people felt in there. We all felt in there. So this is a really rich topic to get people, like if you're training people that are going out into the field and they get this on the ground level of their training, it's a wonderful opportunity for them. And I will say it's great for parents and partners and anybody that works with people in any realm, especially if you're a leader. If you're the leader in a company or a team, this is a really important skill set.
Absolutely. And I'm proud to share, I can share with you one of my failures in regards to this. As a early clinician, I'd probably only been working for 2 years. This was over 16, 17 years ago. But I was working with a patient who had had a stroke and they were aphasic, which means they had trouble communicating. They couldn't speak. They could understand, right? They could understand what I was saying. They couldn't speak back to me. And maybe the processing was delayed a little bit. And I was trying to get them to do this exercise where they were standing up in a set of parallel bars. And I'm doing a lot of physical work to help support this person's body. And I'm trying to get them to move in a certain way. And they keep moving. I don't want to say the wrong way, but they're moving in a way that I am not wanting them to move. And instead of like in these moments, like I'm getting physically tired. I'm trying to keep this person upright and safe. And in the moment, I'm just getting frustrated. I'm getting frustrated at myself because I can't figure out the solution to this. But in getting frustrated, the volume of my voice picks up, the speed that I'm talking starts to pick up. And then I start to get upset at the patient. And I'm going like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? I want you to do this. And it was just totally me not being able to control my emotion in that moment, take a step back, realize what's going on. Another PT had to tell me like, listen, you gotta calm down a little bit. And it was a good learning point for me. It was embarrassing, but I mean, I share my failures with the students all the time. And that was a complete clinical failure of emotional control on my part. And I learned a lot from it. And like you say, now I'm in front of students where I have to exhibit a lot more control so that I'm the steadying presence regardless what's going on in the rest of their curriculum or their lives, or in that day, in that moment, I can be a steady presence for them.
Well, I love that story because you learned from the experience and you learned from it, but you had really good intentions. And those intentions were clearly wanting to help the patient. And I think same with my doctor, her intentions were good. And but I want to tell you, I'm going to yes and your failure story. And Jonathan, if you have a failure story, we would love to hear it. But when I was a new social worker, I was just new doing one-on-one psychotherapy, and I was very scared about the weight of. They give new graduates these cases like domestic violence cases in a community mental health center where people go when they really don't have much money. They go to the sliding scale place. And I'm sitting across from this woman who's in a very violent situation at home. And I'm feeling so anxious for her and for myself. And I'm thinking, wow, this is bad. She really needs professional help. She really needs to see wait a minute. I'm the help. Oh my God, I'm the help. And I start inside, I'm like, I'm the one she's coming to. And she goes, Jude, your lips are moving. And I said, what? She said, your lips are moving. And I realized I was not listening to her and my lips were moving and I was thinking my thoughts with my lips, like out loud and not out loud, but silently. And then I said, I had to be honest with her. And I said, I'm really sorry. I am new at this and I want to do a good job. I want to be a resource for you. And I'm taking seriously what you're saying, but I am new in this job. And I believe me, I'm going to get supervision and I will get all the help I could get, but that won't happen again. And she appreciated me being honest. There was no way that I could say, no, my lips weren't moving. They were. And that was my overthinking. Actually, improv helped me a lot with that one anxiety symptom. Do you have a failure story, Jonathan?
I do. It's a non-clinical story, and it definitely, I think it sort of mixes what Justin described and what you described. Each day when I come downtown to the office, I have to take the Metro, which is similar to like an Amtrak or a Long Island Railroad, that sort of train line. And each day, a conductor comes through the car. So you hear the door open, then you hear someone shout tickets, and everyone gets their phone ready. People are still like looking at their laptops, they're reading their books, whatever it might be. And they come through the aisle, they start on the bottom, then they head back and they look up toward the top. I happen to, when I'm lucky, I get a seat on the top aisle, and this gentleman is walking back, so I know it's time for us to flash our tickets. I hold up my cell phone with my ticket, and I make what I think is clear eye contact with him. And I think he's looking at me. So I close my app, I go back to whatever it is I'm doing, and then all of a sudden I hear the tap, 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 a loud metal tap. And I look down and he's glaring at me. And I say, I'm sorry, sir, what can I do for you? He's like, I need to see your ticket. And suddenly there was this escalation of emotion. I could feel it in his voice, I could see his body language. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I shared this with you as you were walking up the aisle. We made clear eye contact. And I threw in a few choice words as well. I'm not perfect. And suddenly I'm in a situation where this gentleman is literally ready to come to blows with me because I'm questioning his authority in the middle of this is his space. He is in control. And I am suddenly, just because I know I've shown what I need to show to him, I am suddenly someone that he has to contend with. So I'd say, okay, look, sir, I apologize. I don't need this. I don't need you to chase me off the train. I don't need to be thrown off the train. I show him the app again. That was approximately 2.5 months ago. This morning, as I'm heading downtown, the same gentleman, same situation. He walks to the front of the car. I hear up top. I say, boom, hold up my phone. He walks along. We make clear eye contact. And guess what? He didn't see it again. This time I have to say, nope, my bad, sir. Here you go. Check it out. Here's my app. He gives me the thumbs up and he walks on. It's the subtle, slight little thing that can escalate things so rapidly. And we don't even know we're doing it some of the time. So
That's a great example of, yeah, I thought I was right. I thought everything was fine, and someone else doesn't understand it that way. And those big emotional reactions, if we match them, now we've got two big emotional reactions going on. That's a
yeah,
great story.
I'm not gonna lie. I would not have won that fight if it had come to blows. I just be perfectly honest.
The students are going to love that story, Jonathan, because you're always so calm and collected. And they see Jonathan a lot during exam times when it's high stress, and faculty as well see him. And they're going to be like, man, Jonathan was ready to throw down with a Metro
Yeah.
conductor.
On the Metro.
Get it on the Metro. Yeah.
So let's do, I know you guys have some improv exercises for us to do to explore this idea of emotional awareness, or let's take it away. So one of you want to go ahead and launch into an exercise that I can do with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Why don't we start off with a game that we always like to sort of break the ice and kind of get people out of their heads called Where My Fingers Been. It's just a fun, quick game that we can do, and we'll add an emotional layer to this so that it ties in directly to some of the things we'll be doing in a few minutes.
Okay.
So what would typically happen is either if we have a large enough group, we'd get in a circle and we would chant a quick chant that goes, where have my fingers been? Tell me, where have my fingers been? Say what? Where have my fingers been? Say, where have my fingers been? And when you finish the chant, one person, the initiator, would look at someone in the group. So I'd look at you, Jude, and say, I give you a location of, say, a shopping mall. So what you do is you'd raise both of your hands, hold up both index fingers, and your right could be the initiator, your left is the responder, and you'd have a three-line scene. And in this case, let's give you an emotion of the right side is angry, the left side is staying calm. And you can take it away.
I want to return this iron. Well, ma'am, we'll take back pretty much anything you buy from this store because we're a retail outlet and we don't care. Well, thank God, because it sucks. That's where my fingers have
And
been.
That's where your fingers have been.
Perfect example. And again, it adds a certain layer of emotion, sort of the conflict that we were talking about in our stories, but then it leads into the emotional communication and the emotional dial that we're going to talk through. So, Justin, you can go ahead and take that.
All right, where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been? Say, what? Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been? Okay, Jonathan, your fingers have been at Jersey Mike's, and they're excited.
Ooh. Hey, Carl, I'm getting the number 4. No way, dude. I'm getting the number 4. That's right, Carl. One and the same.
And that's where my fingers have been.
You want to do one, Justin?
Sure.
Okay.
Justin, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think we have to do the chant. Let's just give him a location.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
You're at a Green Bay Packer game.
Oh, boy.
And the right side is a Packer fan, and the other side is a Vikings fan.
I know that our team is so much better than the way we're playing right now. Skol! Skol! If you don't be quiet, I'm going to kick you out of Lambeau. Yeah. And that's where my fingers have been.
I realized I didn't give you an emotion, but I assumed the Minnesota-Wisconsin rivalry would kind of we would all click into that. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm very aware of the old football rivalry. So how do we debrief that exercise? Let's say you're doing it with a group of people, and you ask a few questions about it, or does it just speak for itself? Like we are just calibrating different emotions and playing?
I think it speaks for itself, and that when we introduce it, we're trying to get them to say, like, trying to get you out of your head. We know this is silly. So we're asking you to be a little silly. You're talking with your fingers, right? You're kind of doing a Where's Thumpkin, but you're doing it with your index fingers. And the idea of we're asking you to put a little bit of emotion on it just so you can get past that barrier of being uncomfortable, because now with the next game, we're going to ask you to really go into some emotion.
Okay, so you're warming them up to focusing on emotions, but keeping it very light. It's silly, and it is very fun, and there is a little bit of risk involved, not an unmanageable risk. It's a very manageable risk. And
everyone chants together, so you kind of get that group mind flowing a little bit to be like, okay, we're all in this together. We're all doing something kind of silly. We're all chanting.
So now what happens then? What's the next step?
All right, so now we're gonna take it to a game called Emotional Dial. And the way Emotional Dial works is you can do it with one person or two persons, or three, I guess. But what we're gonna ask you to do is we're gonna give you a topic. If we do it for one person, we give you a topic, and we're gonna ask you to talk about that with a certain emotion. And then the caller of the game, in this case, I can be the caller. I have a dial that can turn up to all the way up to 10. So 10 would be the highest level of this emotion for that individual. A 0 would be not showing any of this emotion. So we always try to clarify that. A 5 out of 10 in this case doesn't mean neutral. So for example, anger. 0 is no anger, 1 is a little bit of anger, 5 is still pretty angry, and 10 is that you're trying to show the angriest you've ever been, or the angriest you could feel. So with Emotional Dial, if you want to try out, do you want to try one for yourself, Jude? We'll just it's almost like an emotional rant, but you're going to hear me calling out numbers.
Great. So I could pick a topic, or you want to assign me a topic?
Why don't you, well, let's do it this way. You give me the topic, and I'll give you an emotion.
I'm going to pick a topic that is near and dear to my heart at this very moment, and that is winter weather.
Ooh, winter weather. Okay. I'm going to assign you the emotion of, let's say, joy. And we're going to start at a level 3. All right, you go ahead. I'll let you go for probably like a minute or so, and you'll hear me just calling out numbers on that 0 to 10 scale. So we'll start at a 3.
Okay. There's something about winter weather that is so lovely and spiritual, really. I mean, the snow coming down,
4.
the chill in the air is so, it just gives you a charge of,
5.
and that makes me want to reach, higher in my life too. And it's also cozy on the inside.
6.
And it makes me there's something about the coldness on the outside, the warmth and coziness on the inside, a
7.
fireplace, and then talking to people over. I talk to my neighbors when the
8.
snows. When my neighbor across the street comes and snow blows without even asking if I
9.
need any help, and he comes and he waves like, don't even give me anything.
10.
That the winter weather brings out so much neighborliness and so
2.
much caring. And I wonder sometimes if I could just settle into the beauty of it, and
8.
but then I think about, we're all doing things for each other in this realm of beauty and power and nature. Nature doesn't care.
1.
Nature in this case is saying, just chill out. Smile at your neighbor.
Scene. Fantastic job.
That's really challenging to take it up just a little bit.
Yes, and that's why I usually try to call it that way, because sometimes what usually happens is people either start way too high or way too low. So I feel like I like to start them around a 2 or a 3 so they can build and also realize that they could do a little bit less. But I think giving them that ramp up to be like, oh, I have to keep going. I have to keep going. I have to keep going. It's fun. It's fun as a caller too to watch them work through it. That was fun.
Yes. Very fun.
And then if you notice, as Justin or someone's doing the calling, you start seeing the changes in their physical body. And it's wonderful when someone thinks, oh, he's probably going to call a 10 at some point, and they leap too far. And you actually see them sort of restraining themselves until they get to the 10. And then it's just like a free for all. And some people end up moving about the room. It's wonderful to watch the physical change go from like minuscule up to this ginormous explosion of whether it's joy, anger, whatever the emotion might be.
So are you saying that sometimes when you're doing this, if I'm understanding you correctly, that people are playing it, but they're kind of anticipating what numbers you're in a way they're trying to get ahead of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Because that is a great improv lesson, I think, of like being present and just responding to what the caller is giving you and not anticipating. And that's actually, I can see why people especially in the sciences, it's true in my field as well. People like to overthink things and like to be prepared and ready for the next thing and kind of feel like they're ahead of it. And yet responding to what's really being asked of you, really, that's really what you're training people for a few things there, to really be present with the person that they're playing with, not get ahead of it.
Absolutely. And you can, like, you're an experienced improviser. I could see you ramping it up. Sometimes, you'll get someone up to a 10, and when the game is over, I might tell them, like, if it's a new person new to improv, I might say, like, I think you could go even higher than that. I think you could go even higher. Or if they're more comfortable and I'm more comfortable with them, I think they can handle the side coaching. I might say 9 or 10, and they're doing it. I'm like, that feels like a 6. I need more. I need more. I need more. To debrief a little bit. So for you, the participant, what did it feel like to have to keep going up, especially when you get to like 8, 9, 10? Those are really high levels of emotion. What did that feel like for you?
It feels, and what we just did, it felt a little, there'd be a split second moments of, how will I justify this emotion? But it always comes like, why do I feel this joy? And because we're doing an audio version of this, you can't see me. So I did feel a responsibility to say stuff. And so it felt exciting. And I felt fine about not knowing where you were going to go with it. I felt in my body more and more energy as the numbers got higher. I actually felt that in my body. And then when you drop down from a 10 or a 9 to a 2, I felt like almost I had an image in my mind of dropping off a hill, like landing in soft snow. I really had an image of it in my mind. Like it was a nice landing.
Yeah.
So I was very much aware of what was happening in my body for sure.
Yeah, and I could hear that. I can see it because we're on Zoom, but I could hear it too. And that as I went up, your volume went up a little bit. The speed at which you talked went up a little bit. And even though we started at a three, you were still talking kind of fast at a three. But once I got you all the way up to a 10 and brought you back down to a one and a two, you were talking very slow, very relaxed. So I think you as the player, like you learn a little bit as you go through the scale of like, oh, there's more here. There's more nuance here. And if we can find, later, especially with what we work on with students sometimes is controlling I don't want to say a negative emotion, but a strong emotion that you don't want to show potentially, right? Like anger or disgust. I don't know, something like that. We can maybe sometimes look for an anchor in the way they're talking, the way they're behaving, and say, like, I noticed when you got to a six, it started to get a little intimidating or a little, let's say, unprofessional. So you know that about yourself now. Like, did you know that you do this when you start to get really mad or upset? Or did you know you do this when you get really joyful? And that if you start to feel that in your body, if you start to feel that tick, if you start to notice that with your voice, then that means you're getting past a level that we would say is appropriate for maybe a patient context or a learning context. So you have to be able to recognize that in the moment and dial it down again. So we might run through this a few times, showing different emotions with different people to help give you an anchor.
That's a very good insight, having just done this right now. So you had me start at a 3, and
Hmm.
then after we went through it and I dropped down to a 2, which is very close to a 3, it felt really different. My starting 3, as you said, was more intense than the 2, a lot more intense than the 2. So it did give me an awareness of how you can become much more nuanced and much more aware of those shades of emotion. And yeah, so that's a lovely exercise in self-awareness and in and how it comes across to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like to try it with the two-person scene with you and Jonathan?
Of course I would.
Fantastic. Let's do this. Let's say, can you give me a location? Anybody?
The location is the vestibule of a church.
Ooh, I like
Oh,
that. So you're
nice.
the
Okay.
vestibule at a church. You are a pastor and an associate pastor. Kind of like, you're shaking hands with the parishioners as they leave and you're standing next to each other in line. Jonathan, your emotion is going to be excited. Jude, your emotion is going to be sadness. And I'm going to have both of you start at a three, and then I'll say your name and then a number. So Jonathan is excitement. I'm writing this down too so I don't forget. And Jude, you are sadness. All right? So take it away.
It's quite a lovely turnout, don't you think, Pastor Carol?
Um, I I was hoping for I was actually hoping for so much more, and there are some people that I was hoping would be here that aren't here, and I don't know why.
Jonathan, five.
Oh, yes, yes. I believe the Nelsons haven't shown up today. I believe Ricky Henderson also decided not to attend. Are those the people you were referring to?
Jude, one.
Yes, I was not troubled so terribly by them not being here, and when I think about them, I feel a little bit better actually. Um, but it's been a difficult time here with so many kids.
Jude, five.
So there's so many children that are right now going through a time of feeling alienated and searching, that I feel like I'm just not able to, I'm just having trouble processing it myself, what they're going through.
Jonathan, eight.
Well, I happen to believe that with the power that has been invested in each one of us, we can reach those children, Pastor Carol. We can find them and connect them in ways
Jonathan,
that
nine.
they've never been connected before. And I will assure you, these pews will fill up again, not only with mothers and fathers, but also with their children.
Jude, eight.
But if children feel that we're not meeting them where they are, and I look out there and I see older people and I see parents and
Jude, nine.
and I don't see teens, and I think those teens are on social media. They're not here with us
Jude, 10.
where they could be singing and they could
Jonathan,
be
10.
joining.
Pastor, trust me. Trust in the will. Trust that the work we do here is enough. I guarantee you, the pews will be filled again.
Even one child that we lose is too many.
Pastor, I will go in the street and I will find that one lost child. I will return that lost child to you, to this church, to this congregation.
Jonathan 1.
I believe you, but
Jude 5.
if it helps, it definitely helps to know that you care so much, and you're young and you haven't seen what I've seen. You haven't been through the funerals I've done in this place.
I will not deny, Pastor. There is doubt. There is doubt.
Jonathan 10.
And yet, at the same time, I trust that what you and I can provide will be more than enough.
Jude 1.
I'm comforted. I really am. I'm comforted by your passion and your commitment. And maybe there's that one kid out there that's going to listen to somebody like you.
Scene. I wanted to bust in there like a parishioner, like, it seems like y'all are in something, but could someone unlock the closet?
I was thinking the same thing, that we're having this dialogue and we're meanwhile shaking hands.
Yeah. Great sermon today, Pastor. I'll leave you to it. Yeah, so in that situation, I kind of gave you guys opposite emotions. I get to play with putting you both up at a 10. And then I think you saw in that time, Jonathan, as he got to the higher levels, he actually got more intense with his voice. Like his pace actually slowed down, but there was a lot of energy in the words he was using rather than just screaming. He was so excited. It was like he was trying to keep his body from exploding. He was so excited.
Yeah.
And Jude, you did an excellent job of getting teary and getting sad and kind of wailing, and then like using the numbers to justify, well, I'm feeling better about that. This is a lower number. You're making me feel a little bit better. And again, if we debrief, I'd say, Jonathan, like, what made that hard for you to keep showing excitement in this interaction?
The repetition and doing this, the thought that I'm going to be doing the same thing over and over again, and as if that's not enough. And I think that translates into the way that some of the students might deal with a patient, a client, the way that we deal with people. If we show too much emotion and it's consistent, it's going to lose its effectiveness and its appeal to the other person after a certain amount of time. So just the repetition, have I really hit the highest point I can go, even if it's at a 10? Can I ratchet it up just a little bit more?
Yeah, how about you, Jude? What was it like for you?
The interaction part gave the fact that we were having a relationship and it wasn't, an internal monologue out loud, gave something to information to work with to justify feeling more or less of what I was feeling. So that was very helpful, and to be impacted by the other person, I found helpful in the scene. So the fact that we're impacting each other is real. That is what it's like to do the work, but it's also what it's like to be on the train with a conductor or in the world raising your kids or working in any capacity. We're always being impacted by other people that are in their own thing. So this is a nice concentrated experience. It's a now I'm giving like improv feedback, but I'll let you speak in a second. But that by the person running the caller, taking that off of us, that we have to do what you're asking us to. We're agreeing to do what you ask us to do. That makes the experience very concentrated and gives us this boundary to stay within. And that I found that really useful, to focus on the emotion and just use what Jonathan was giving me to justify why I was feeling what I was feeling. And be
Great.
impacted by him. Yeah.
And sometimes that can be a challenge for seasoned improvisers and sometimes really novice improvisers to say, well, I want, if you're talking about we're losing these children from the church and Jonathan has to stay excited. He has to justify why he's still super excited in this conversation. And then you might hear something that makes you feel better because he's like, I'll go to the ends of the earth to get these kids back. And you have to stay sad. And that's really hard to do because you want to be influenced by each other. But that's also, I think that's the fun of the exercise. And when you're in a life situation where you have to maintain a happy demeanor, or at least, let's say, professional, right? You can take what the other person is doing. As a parent, my goal might be to get this kid out the door because we have to go to school. And I'm listening to what they're saying, but I'm trying to maintain a positive attitude. I'm trying to react to what they're saying and listen with intention, but also I still have this objective of like I have to stay positive. We have to keep moving. I can't get angry. I can't do something that might derail where I'm going. And with a patient or a student talking to a faculty member, they might be really upset about something, right? But they can't just go at that faculty member and start yelling or doing other things. If you're with the patient or the patient's family, the family might be asking you a ton of questions and they could be scared, right, for something that's happening. And you can feel a little bit of that fear with them, but you have to maintain, like you gave in your example with your primary care physician, you have to maintain that professional demeanor. You can't give in to it. You have to keep your emotion in check in some way. You can give a little, you can be a little give and take. You can play with that dial a little bit. You can't really get too high. You can't really get too low. That's how I like to think about it.
That's a wonderful way to think about it. And that's emotional awareness. If we don't have awareness of how we come across to other people, or if we don't really ever explore this within ourselves, people just, a lot of times we're just relating to the world, having feelings and we're not aware of how someone else might read it. Quick story, really quick. I was working in therapy with a client who got really mad. Suddenly she just got really mad at me and said, "You don't value me at all. I'm not as important as your other clients." And I'm just completely taken back. Why would you suddenly think that or say that? She just turned right into this and said, "Because you looked at the clock and because you can't wait for this session to be over. You looked at the clock and the clock was just to her right." I always had the clock behind the person, but off a little bit. And I averted my gaze to see what time it was because she was starting to get into something really heavy and serious. And we only had a few minutes left. And then I had a look on my face of real defensiveness because I felt accused. So I went from being really engaged with what she was saying to feeling very defensive, and it showed. It showed that I wasn't annoyed, but I was taken back. And I think getting back to empathy, like I had to dial back my response to be empathetic to her feeling diminished by me, even though I wasn't my intention at all. And it wasn't useful for me to say, "Well, that wasn't my intention." But when we talk about it, and I was able to say, "I can see why you're feeling emotions." And then I look away from you and I look at the time and you think to yourself, "She just can't wait for this to be over." I can understand that. And I think that matching her emotion, I actually felt like a 9 of defensiveness, but I could share only maybe a 3 of the reality. Yes, I had a look on my face because people are reading everything that we're giving them. And then if we can talk about it, so it's like owning it on the one hand and on the other hand, explaining it.
Yeah. I mean, another failure story. As a instructor, I could get feedback. I remember one time we had released final exam grades, and within minutes, I get emails from students with questions about their grade. But this one student's comments were like, "I know I did this." And again, I'm adding the tone, but it's all written in the email, so I don't know what the tone is. "I know that I did this. I don't think this is fair. I lost all of these points because of this, that, and the other. I know I did this work. Like, this is ridiculous." There was no question. There was no comment. There was really nothing for me to respond to. They were just angry. And I could respond back with kind of like a list of like, "I reviewed your video or your tape and like, you forgot to do this, you forgot to do this, you forgot to do this." You're like, "That's equal to 10 points. That's why you saw what you saw." And, I send that their way and I don't get anything in response, right? And I learned early on, though, I probably shouldn't have sent that email because I was really defensive. And this person's a little upset. They're probably more upset with themselves. They probably have some other stress about grades going on. And my instinct was to defend myself and write this, very logical argument breaking down why they did so badly, rather than saying, like, "I can see that you're surprised by your grade. It'd be a good thing for us to talk about. I'm happy to explain this or go over your concerns with you." And I've kind of learned that about myself. I've learned that from feedback when we talked about anchors in this game, that like when I'm writing too much in an email, it means I'm feeling something strongly. So I need to dial it back. And in this game, with excitement or sorrow, we can maybe get to like, if you feel yourself starting getting teary, like I've been in moments in the clinic where I've started to get teary. And I think there's times when it's appropriate if a patient is going through something, but sometimes it's just because I'm getting frustrated and I know that, okay, I could start to feel like tears, and I need to, again, turn that dial down, take a few breaths, focus on something concrete, and maybe ask a question or answer a question to help regulate myself. And that's what we kind of work with our students. It's like, once you learn what your levels look like, how can we get you to an appropriate number on that dial for a given context?
I love that you're using improv for this because it's one of the most powerful ways. There's so many complexities to improv, and it's one of the most powerful ways to behave in a way and then figure it out after. And that, just doing that, just saying, yes, I'm going to behave in this way, and then I'm going to unwind it and rationally understand it, because that's really how in life we're acting and then understanding afterwards sometimes.
Yeah, right. We get, in school, we get the lesson and then the test. In life, you get the test and hopefully you get a lesson.
That's so true. And like my example with clients, of when I was doing psychotherapy, which I don't do much of anymore, but it's, you get tired yourself. You get tired and you're feeling weary from the pain of the emotional pain of absorbing it and processing it yourself. And if that shows at all, that's really going to hurt somebody. That could really hurt someone. So really, you need a lot of self-awareness. And same with parenting, same with just knowing how to discharge whatever is going on with us so that we can be at a 3 and appropriately upset or responsive, not too excited, not too defensive, whatever it might be, so that that other person can have their truth. You want
Sure.
anything you want to chime in here, Jonathan, about this?
Sure. An example that I've experienced recently is I sometimes volunteer with an older population. A lot of them are challenged if they have technology. And an experience with an older gentleman, he had literally dozens of tabs open on his laptop, and he was struggling with the simple, how do I close this? How do I go and find this? I personally thought I was giving a calm, measured response, and maybe 10 to 15 minutes went along, and I felt like I was repeating the exact same instructions over and over and over again. And at one point, he just turned to me and looked and said, "You're getting very irritated with me." And I didn't feel like my voice had like I was yelling. I don't feel like I was being direct, but something about whatever was going on with me internally, there was a little frustration, but that was starting to creep out, and he was picking up on it. And it wasn't my intention at all. It was, I'm here, I want to help you. I'm struggling myself because I can't help you right now. And I think that's a very human moment and a very human feeling of, I can't help you anymore. You've reached a certain point where if you can't help yourself and the professionals around you can't help you, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I want to be present with you and I want to enjoy being around you, but this is not working anymore. And his you're getting frustrated with me was my tipping point of, okay, you're right. I need to back off now, and maybe someone else can jump in and help you figure out the tab situation. And there are a lot of situations that I think, like I know Justin has talked about kids, students, just like the conductor on the train. We're not even aware of what we're giving off at times, but we've become very consumed and very aware of what we're getting back. And that's when things start escalating and kind of create that inner turmoil that makes us sometimes blow up and respond in a way that's not necessarily appropriate, whether it's professionally or personally. So yeah,
And
that's kind of where my mind goes with all of this.
to piggyback on Jonathan, I think a debrief you can add to this game when there's two people is you kind of give the partners a chance to say, what did that feel like as they started ramping up? Because sometimes you might get somebody who is like, you were really joyful, or you were really, when you got to like a 5 of sadness, like it was really a lot for me to take in. And to you, to you as the actor, you might be like, oh, I didn't think that was anything. Like that's nothing for me for sadness. But your partner's telling you like, well, you looked really, really sad. There's a good avenue to like tell the person like, when did it really start to change for you? When did it start to feel unnatural? Did it start to feel appropriate? And especially with anger, those are good ones to kind of work with, and frustration, to be like, when you're a 3, you look really mad when you're a 3, right? And to some people, like, oh, like when you got to a 10, something about you changed, your face changes, and you need to know that, yeah, like you need to dial that back a little bit because when you get angry, like you make other people uncomfortable in the room, even if you're not talking. And so there's a whole other lesson there on like what you give and receive with these levels.
Yes, and it's a fine, sometimes people will want to feel like they're supposed to be authentic. I mean, there's being authentic and then there's being professional, and there's authentic as a parent, say, or somebody who's caregiving someone else. Being authentic could mean I deeply care about you right now, and I'm also aware that you're having a tantrum, so I'm not going to make it worse. It's not my authentic feeling is I want to lose my mind, but I'm not going to make it worse. But like
Yes.
when using the example of sometimes in psychotherapy, because everything is about talking and everything is about your relationship, everything. That's all you're doing there. It's not about their body, it's about their mind and their emotions. And so to be misread, if somebody would misread, it would happen quite often. I realized that I could look really sad. I learned to rein that in because they would be like, oh no, I'm upsetting you. Just speaking about the sad thing. I know I'm upsetting you. Empathy is one thing, but staying in control is another.
No, no. When I lecture, Jude, I have a notepad next to me so I can write down questions, but I also write on that notepad, slow down, and then I write smile. Because ever since I was in college, I've been told I have a very serious face, especially when I'm thinking. Like I kind of furrow my brow and I'd walk around campus, and it's kind of like what you hear a lot of what like women get appropriately annoyed at people saying, "Why don't you smile more?" Like I'd walk around campus and my friends would be like, "Justin, smile," because I'd look angry.
Right.
And then as I started to teach, early on, I got my course feedback and it would say like Justin's intimidating, but once you talk to him, like he's really easy to get along with. And I heard that in another program. I went to ask a kid a question, a student, I should say, not a kid, it was a young adult. I went to ask them a question and they're like shaking. And I'm like, are you okay? And they're like, no, you're making me really, really nervous. And I'm like, why? I don't know. You're just kind of like looking at me. And I was like, oh, okay. That's good to know that I carry this presence that I wasn't aware of. But I had to kind of learn. People think that you're really serious and angry. So I have to make sure that I'm not displaying that, even if I don't. So I have to remind myself to literally smile in class so that people don't get too intimidated to talk to me or ask me questions.
That takes a lot of self-awareness to say, like, you're not trying to hurt anybody, and yet some people have an impression of you. Jonathan, do people have a take on you that you have to be aware of?
Yeah, a lot of people think that I'm not serious. I can't be taken seriously. I got a very expressive face from my father, and early on in acting, I would get feedback all the time about, well, we want to cast you in a dramatic role, but you've got a face that makes people want to laugh. You've got a face that makes people want to do this. So I went through classes, I went through training to try to change myself, and finally I just realized I can embrace who I am, I can present who I am, and I have to understand that there's a certain path and there's a certain stereotype when it comes to like casting and that sort of thing. Improv allows you to do different things and not be stereotyped and typecast in different things. And I think that translates into the work that we do with the students because a lot of them come in, they're very serious minded, they're very concerned about grades and success, and then allowing them and seeing them slow down and kind of embrace the fact that we allow you to have some fun in this really intense environment and it changes them. And then the big payoff is typically like earlier this week, we were told by a student that we've worked with that they've started taking improv classes. And part of that was because they have the experience of the introduction to medical improv in the program where we are. And so when other people come back and say, I didn't get it at the time, I didn't quite understand exactly what you were trying to do for me and help me, but I get it now, and it's something that I can explore. I'm actually growing as a presenter, and I'm no longer being misinterpreted. And if I am, I'm at least aware of why that is. So with me, again, you probably are not going to cast me as someone who is a lot of Arthur Miller type plays with a lot of serious grit. You're probably going to put me in classical Neil Simon or something slapstick, again, because of my face. And I understand that, but I also understand when I need to bring it back and remain like have a poker face and just more of a neutral face. So if I am in a situation, whether it's a student or someone in my personal life, and they're sharing with me, I'm not going to be misinterpreted as laughing or not taking what they're sharing with me seriously. And I think there's a lot of value in this work. because people do become self-aware of, yeah, I looked at you kind of funny, like your example of looking just beyond the placement of the clock. This has nothing to do with you. I literally just need to make sure for insurance purposes, I need to know if we need to wrap up or not. And the same thing in the one-on-one interactions or the one on multiple people interactions. You need to be aware of what you're presenting. And again, sometimes it comes back to you receive something and it kind of gets the best of you, and that's when things escalate. And that's kind of my whole like thread throughout this entire topic and this entire idea is be aware of what you're receiving and how it's changing you and how it might be impacting you, but also be aware of the physical changes that are being presented to the person. And is it an appropriate response in that moment based on the context of that interaction?
Yes, and improv is an ideal format for exploring this exact thing because in improv, we only have each other. We don't have props, we don't have set, we don't have costumes, there's no script. There's just the way we are with each other. So bringing our best, our highest emotional intelligence, our best intentions, but also our self-awareness as you guys are helping people to find it, to find how that feels in yourself. What is it you're projecting out? Because in improv, that's all we have. So we're going to become aware, and we're vulnerable out there, but we're not alone out there. So there's a lot of wonderful richness to what you're bringing to students, that every relationship they're going to have with their physical therapist or anyone that you train will benefit because of the training that they have in using themselves and using how we present to the world and that we're always feeling all the time. So guys, let's wrap up with this thought. Is there anything you want to share or can share that you think might be useful for people about the research that you've done?
Ooh, I guess what I'll say is we're one of the first places in the country to do this with physical therapy students. And what we've been able to do thus far is we haven't had the chance to do our full 10 hours of work. Like we're going to do that this summer, so I'm very excited about that. But what we've done before is we would take our existing curriculum and we would find places where we thought improv exercises would be a great way to introduce a concept. And it's typically around communication strategies. And we've integrated that into two different courses. We do it at our orientation too, and we've done focus groups with students and faculty, and we basically find that it increases engagement a lot. So as a faculty member, you're not trying to pull teeth to get students to volunteer ideas because there's a risk, right? They don't want to get embarrassed. They don't want to fail in front of their peers. Doing improv gets them over that fear of failing. So they're more engaged, the faculty sense it, the students sense it, and the students start to see the clinical tie-ins, especially in their second year when they've already gone to a clinic. And then they do improv again in the second year in their classes, and they're like, oh, like this reminds me of this patient, this reminds me of this patient. So it's very salient, and because it's improv and it's silly and it's not patient scenarios, they feel more free and they feel like they can make mistakes because they're not having to pretend to be a physical therapist. They can be, two pastors outside the church and talk about whatever they want to talk about. And I think in general too, they also say like it's just a fun distraction from other stuff that they're doing. It's like a mental break, even though they're learning at the same time. And I think learning should be more fun. There's nothing wrong with that.
Learning should be fun. Learning should be joyful and creative. Anything you want to add to that, Jonathan?
You're preaching to the choir.
Mm-hmm.
I've been one of the messages that faculty, staff, and students hear from me all the time is you can have fun in a rigorous, intense environment like this, and you don't have to take yourself so seriously. And we bring that to the table. So,
Yes, you definitely do. Well, you guys have been a delight. I had so much fun doing these scenes with you. Is there any way that people can find you online? We'll put in the show notes anything you want to link to. But how can people find you if they want to?
I'm trying to think. I don't do a good job of social media. I'm on Instagram at Justin Time with no I in Justin. But if you can look me up just look for the Northwestern Physical Therapy and Human Movement Sciences Department, you'll find my faculty profile. You can find my email. Please feel free to contact me. I'm on LinkedIn. Just this week, someone reached out to me about doing some improv research, so I'm happy to share ideas. I met someone at a big conference recently that is using a manual that Jonathan and I created. We created it 4 years ago, and they're using it at their school. So please feel free to reach out with any questions you have. I think I'm the only Justin Drogus on Google. So if you type in my name, you should be able to find me.
Easy. Wonderful. Jonathan?
And the same as far as Northwestern contacts. You can find me in the directory there. I am active on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't want to do a shameless plug about the improv teams that I'm on, but you can find out about that if you find me and we connect personally. Eventually, we will have a dedicated space, I'm hoping, on the Northwestern site for medical improv within physical therapy. As you can imagine, there's a ginormous approval process for that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Well, I hope people find you, keep learning from you, and it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This
Thank
was
you,
awesome.
That's it for this episode of Improv in Real Life. For more info about our guest and other resources, you can visit our show notes. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow or subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're feeling extra generous, write us a review or share with a friend. You can also find us on Instagram at lifestage_inc. And if you want to dive deeper into these concepts, please connect with me on Substack at Jude Treder-Wolff.
To be continued, to be continued, to be continued.
We need each other now more than ever. We need creativity more than ever. I hope these games and ideas inspire you in some way. And if they do, keep it going. I will too. See you next time.